riding on the city of New Orleans, Illinois Central, Monday morning rail. 15 cars and 15 restless riders, 3 conductors, 25 sacks of mail. All along the southbound Odyssey, the train pulls out at Kankakee and rolls along past houses, farms, and fields, passing trains that have no name, and freight yards full of old black men, and the graveyards of the rusted automobiles. Good morning, America, how are you?
Okay, so I've made a lot of trains, and when I thought about how I was going to present a program to you, I decided that I would first present kind of an order of production of the motive power, and then along with the engines, basically, I would show what cars would go with the engines. And so I've approached my presentation in that regard. As you all know, Ives was not only a manufacturer of toy trains, but they were the largest toy producer in the United States by 1890. And they were known throughout the world. And the name of Ives in the American household, pretty much every family knew the name of Ives, because if they had children, they bought Ives toys. So it all starts in Plymouth, Connecticut. And there were 2 families that lived. It was a farming community out. There was a river running through the valley, and it was mainly farms. And there were 2 families. The Ives family had come to Connecticut back in the 1700s, and the family called the Blakesley were also in Plymouth. It had been a long-term family. And these 2 families eventually got together, and that's how the company was started. The principals, initially, there was a Riley Ives, and he was born in the early 1800s, and in the Blakesleys, there was Joel Blakesley. Joel Blakesley was a carriage manufacturer. He made carriages in the town of Plymouth. And Riley Ives was mainly a farmer, although he was real mechanical. And he went out and he worked at a spring factory, but he eventually came back to Plymouth and he farmed. And in 1839, Edward R. Ives, R meaning Riley, was born. And the Blakesleys had a daughter, Jeannie. And Jeannie and Edward R. Ives were married in 1866. And they had a son, Harry C. Ives, and he was born in 1867. And Edward R. Ives started the Ives Company. It was called Ives and Blakesley. They started the company in 1868. And they had a small shop on the Blakesleys' farm where the carriage works was. And the first thing that they produced were hot air toys. And these are toys that you'd put them above the stove, and then the heat from the stove would rise, and they would kind of flutter in the air, and that was really the start of the toy business for Ives. And by 1870, Edward, his business had grown, and he needed more people to work for him, and he was in a farming community, so he moved his business to Bridgeport, Connecticut. And he located in a building on Railroad Avenue. Bridgeport was a seaport town. It wasn't very large. It was the 3rd largest city in Connecticut during that time, in 1870. And but it had 3 railroads that ran through the town. And he located his factory on Railroad Avenue. During that time, Bridgeport was not only, it was kind of like the manufacture hub of New England. It had a large boot and shoe factories were located there. The largest sewing machine company in the world was located in Bridgeport. And so the workers that there, they worked for these large companies. And certainly Ives was able to hire people. It wasn't very large. When you think of 19,000, it's probably about the size of Louisa County. And this was like the 3rd largest city in the state of Connecticut. So that's kind of how it started, and it progressed. By 1876, Ives had gotten into wind-up toys, and they became known throughout the United States for their wind-ups. They had great springs on their wind-ups. They produced a whole variety of toys that were wind-up toys, and by 1890, they got into cast iron, and they started to make fire engines and fire trucks pulled by horses, and they made their floor toys, their trains, and they did that up to about 1900. Now, what I want to start with, this is a floor toy. This is an Ives production, probably made in the 1890s, and it's scaled like an O-gauge train. I'm going to pass this around. You can all look at it. And that was a typical of the small. Now, Ives made some real large floor toys, trains, and they were colorfully painted. The brake sleeves, being in the carriage business, they had very good knowledge of painting, and they were involved in painting some of these cast iron toys in their early years. And but what happened in 1900, in December of 1900, they had a fire in the Ives factory, and the factory burned down, burned to the ground. The Ives family lost everything that they had. The whole history of what the company had done. The company had been in business for 30 years at that point, and they were mainly a toy manufacturer. They hadn't gotten into trains, but and at that point, Edward R. Ives was about 60 years old, 63 years old. Harry, his son, who had grown up with the business, was in his early 30s. And what happened at that point is the baton of the company was transferred to Harry Ives. I'm making this a little simple. It's a little more complicated, but I'm trying to give you a timeline here. So Harry Ives, that's when he takes over the Ives company and becomes the Ives Manufacturing Company. They get the insurance proceeds, and they decide that they're going to rebuild. But the direction they take the company is entirely a different direction. They decide that they're going to start making track-side trains, cast iron trains. And it's pretty radical, because they're switching from their toy business to just trains. But evidently they saw what Markland had been doing in the 1890s with their miniature railroads, and they thought that there was great opportunity. Lionel's just starting out in 1900. Ives had already been going for 30 years. So actually the fire, in some respects, sets the course for the next 30 years with Ives. So for the first 9 years, from 1900 or 1901 through 1909, they make basically wind-up trains. They don't do electric trains. They're all wind-up. The first trains they had from about 1901 to 1905 were numbered 1, 2, and 3. And these were metal trains that were pressed and then hand painted. And I have an example here of the first train. This is a number 2 train, and it's hand painted, very fragile, and it had.
Number 2.
This is a number 2. They made 3, a 1, 2, and 3, and they were basically distinguished by their color patterns. This is a gondola that's hand painted. And it has the springs, and they start out with what they call the loop coupler, and it's a very thin coupler. There's knobs on the cars, and the loop fits over the knob, and that's how they connect with each other. There weren't a lot of cars at this time. There was a passenger car, and there was the gondola, and the different styles of engines. But there wasn't a lot of different cars early on. By 1906, they had switched their production to cast iron trains. They had done the cast iron with the floor toy, and this is the Ives number 11. It's one of the first cast iron trains they had. This is an 040, and this was it's a very nice model. It's beautiful, and they came out with a larger tender. The first engines had what they call an FE1 tender, which was a smaller tender, and then they came to the number 11 tender, LEV or LVE, Limited Vestibule Express. And again, it had the loop couplers. And
Is that indicated too here?
this one is, I believe it's lithography. Okay, and it had the cars. They upgraded their cars. This is a baggage car. This is the number 50 baggage car. And then they made a chair car and a parlor car. This is the 51, which has the 4 vertical windows. And then the 50, I guess they're both 51, they're both 51s, but this one had a little different type of window. It had a curve at the top. But beautiful cars. So these were the first passenger cars that went with the earliest engine. Okay? So they made cast iron engines from 1906 through 1917. So that was after 1917, no more cast iron. But the wind-ups ran from 1906 to 1917. So after the number 11, they started their number sequence again. They had the 1, 2, 3, 4. These are wind-ups, and then they had they had 11, 17. And a 20 and a 25. But those were the basically numbers. This is a number 3 engine, and this came out in 1908. And it was a 220. They call this the bicycle wheel arrangement, where the big wheel is in front. Only 1 year they make this engine, 1908. And it has the red plates. And early on, the plates were red on the engine. The number 11, early one didn't have it. This had a color below the window. They started when they went to the 1, 2, 3, 4, and the other engines, they had the plates underneath the window. It has the smaller FE1 tender, like the early tender. But they changed the design of the cars, and they had these early cars were called Indian cars, and they had the vestibule in the front. And so in 1908, they got rid of the vestibule, and they started to make the inside. The vestibule was inside the car, not exterior. So they changed the model of the car. These are still 50 series cars, and they changed the names from Iroquois and Hiawatha to Brooklyn and Buffalo. So these were the different names. This is the number 52. It has the the larger, kind of the more parlor car windows.
And they ran on track?
Yeah, these are all track trains, and these are wind-ups. So what happened, in 1910 they had a breakthrough. They decided that they were going to make an electric engine to go on O-gauge track, and that was a big thing back then. And they, this goes here, they came up with electric, this was their first electric locomotive. It was the number 1100, so while the early engines had 1, 2, 3, 4, and 2-digit numbers, the electrics all had 4-digit numbers. 1100, and it was a 220, so the small wheels were in the front. And again, they changed the style of the cars, and they went with Newark and Washington as the passenger cars. And they changed the way the frames were. These are called open frame cars because the frame is open. And there's all different varieties when you collect, and I'm kind of simplifying. I'm kind of showing you the size of the cars, and so that's what they call the open frame. Now, in 1910, they not only made the first electric steam engine, but they came out with an electric New York Central S-Class center cab engine. This is the 3200. And so they came out with this little electric engine, and as a comparison on the cars, these cars are the same size as these cars, except these don't have the open frame. These have a solid frame on the bottom. Now, this car they also make with an open frame. So when you collect, you can get open frame or closed frame. And I wanted to show you what the closed frame looked like. But these are all 50 series cars, and they started to increase the number of options that you had. They came up with a gondola and a log car and an ice caboose, and they have a box car that goes with the cattle car, and these are quite collectible. So they came up with those, and that was 1910. Now, I want to show you an engine here. This is the number, okay, let's see. Okay, this engine's a number 20. This is a larger wind-up engine, larger than 1100. So the 20 was not the largest. The largest wind-up engine they have was a number 25, and this is a number 25 here. And so on the wind-up engines, they made different sizes, and with the higher the number, the better the spring. And well, we had 1, 2, 3, and 4. The 4 had a better spring than the number 1 engine. The 25 had the big spring that would go for a long time. The 20 engine had a good frame, and you can see if you compare this engine to this engine, the 25. The 20 is an earlier engine. It has the red plates, and it has 6-spoke wheels, and about 19. This would have been probably in the late 2009, and this would have been probably about 1914. So there's variations in the way, not only in the size of the spring, but in the wheels and all that. It's kind of complicated to explain.
Did they make wind-up and electric at the same time?
Yeah. The electrics start in 1910. The wind-ups go through 1917. They start in 1906 and go through 1917. To kind of give you a variety of different cars, the largest electric engine that they made was a 3238. And so you had the small 3200 being the smallest one, electric, and then this is the 3218, and the 3238 was the largest one, and it had the trucks in the front and the back. So it was a 242 engine, and it was lighted. And all O-gauge, yeah. And the larger cars were these the 129 series, and these are the early. These are probably about 1914, and they made a couple different. They had two coach cars and a buffet, and they had a baggage car. They didn't make a observation car back in those early days. They made this car in the 20s, and they added a observation car. But these are the early ones. I wanted to show you the difference in size. As a comparable, the freight cars are right here, and these are the larger 9-inch freight cars. This is cotton built. They had all different road names. I mean, they're beautiful cars. These are quite collectible. This is a very early one where the roof is hand painted. That's a 127. And I think these were 124s. So.
Peter, was there any difference as far as the amount that they made of the freight sets versus
No.
your sets?
No, they're all, you know.
They make the same amount?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they're available. I mean, these cars are probably worth about 150 apiece. The freight cars are worth about 250, 275. So they're a little more expensive.
Were the wind-up diamond store trains and the electric
No.
department store, they were all department store level?
Yeah. So the next breakthrough happens in 1919. In 1919, the stamped metal trains replace the cast iron trains. So the cast iron and the wind-ups are gone, and Ives comes up with new designs for a stamped metal train, and they make several different sizes. They make a 3250, a 3251, and a 3253. This is the 3251, and it's stamped, and then they change the passenger cars. They're larger than the 50 series, the early ones, and these become the 60 series passenger cars, and they go with the stamped metal cars.
The graphics improved too, huh?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the early cars are quite nice. This is an earlier, probably a 1914 passenger car versus the real later one. It's the same size car. These have wood lithography. These are metal lithography cars. The earlier ones were actually prettier than these later ones. You know, they made this car in red, and they made it in dark green, and then the olive. These are real collectible cars. These are called Yale and Harvard cars. So.
I was thinking, apparently during World War I there were no restrictions on the manufacturer.
Well, no, not the local guys, but that's when the foreign manufacturers got blocked out, and the local manufacturers had a better shot of selling.
But the government had no restrictions on
Metal? No. They made trains right through. So in 1925, they make this stamped metal car, and this is 3254, and it's the same style, this is a 3253. So the first two metal cars made in 1919 were these. This was the smaller one, this is the larger one. So different price points on the engines, and you know, basically pretty much the same. Bell, light, the hand railings are the same, just the size. And in 1925, they added this one. This is a 3254, and that's when Ives designs the reverse unit. And this is a manual reverse, so it has a switch here that you can go back and forth. I bought this. This was Alan's Sif's train, and bought that at an auction after he passed. I want to take a brief moment here and talk about how I got started with Ives. There were three people here in the club that were instrumental in me learning about Ives and getting started. Because I've collected a lot of different manufacturers, and it kind of coincides with my finances at the time and putting the children through school. And, but I got involved with Ives. Alan Sif, for many of the older members here, he gave a program. And he came up here in the front, and he had a box that he had brought back from New York, and it was full of wind-up trains. I don't know how many of you remember that. And he pulled the trains out of the box, and you know, I was amazed. And that's how it is. You know, when you watch a program, you get inspired by the presentation, and you decide, well, I'm going to maybe collect those items. But Alan kind of had an impact on me on that one program, because he must have gone wild at York buying wind-up trains, because he had a whole box full of wind-up trains. And we used to go to his house for meetings, and we'd go down to the basement, and he had a stash of Ives trains down there, pretty amazing. And he was very particular on the trains that he bought, and we would always talk about, this was not his set, but he had this early set of 1100 with these Newark and Washington cars. And I saw those at his house, and I wrote an article back in the late 90s in the Observation talking about this is one of the first sets that I had collected with Ives. But he kind of inspired me on Ives. He was involved with the Ives Train Society. He was their newsletter editor throughout the 90s. He was real knowledgeable about Ives. And the second person was John Gilmer. And John was very fortunate in the 90s. There was a group of guys. Kim Baldwin was an older gentleman that belonged to the club, and they called him the General. And he had formed the Ives Train Society back in like 1935. Now, Ives was out of business by that time.
Does he sell insurance now?
No, he passed away, Kim Baldwin. But he and Alan and John and Leonard Winslow and Jim Crone. I think John actually made some of the lunches back in those days, didn't you, John? Did you ever go to any of the lunches we had?
Yeah, I went to a couple of them. Yeah.
What happened was that John said, "Peter, I want you to come to a lunch." And I said, "Well, I don't have any Ives." And John says, "Well, I'll take care of that." And he had an engine, and he said, "You know, take this engine, and you can pay me for it." And I bought it from him, and it was a standard gauge engine, and I had it redone. Bill Uhase painted it, and did a beautiful job. It was a Marine engine. It was a 3241, so it was a large one. And but I had an Ives engine, so I got invited to the lunches. And they used to meet up in Ashland at the Iron Horse, and they would meet in Charlottesville for lunch, and then they would go to Leonard Winslow's house. Roger Wyden was a member of that group also. And Roger was an Ives collector, is an Ives collector also. And what he did was, Roger being a professor and kind of a scholarly, he started to write for me for the newsletter. And over 15, close to 20 years, he's produced story after story on Ives. And from Roger's writing, I've learned all about Ives. And so in 2006, Alan had passed on. I was buying some Ives at that time, and I talked to the big Ives collector is Dave McIntoffer and Don Lewis. They're the premier Ives collectors, other than John DeSantis, who has everything. But I asked Don, there was an opening on the board, and I got elected to the board of directors for the Ives Trade Society. So I'm kind of a neophyte, but I've learned a lot from the pros there. There's a guy named Randy Berger, and he's got an amazing Ives collection, but probably the most knowledgeable is Dave McIntoffer. So that's how I got involved in collecting Ives. So the sheet metal trains came, and then in 1926, Ives came up with, prior to that, everything they made was the S-Class center cab engine. And John Gilmer and Johnny, they have a high volume. John loved his S-Class engines, and he's got lots of engines that are S-Class. But and that's what Ives mainly made. But in 1926, they came up with a new design that had the St. Paul style engine, and it had the rounded hood, and this was their first design other than the S-Class. And this is a green set. It's that light green, but they made this set also in gray. They call it the Greyhound set. This is not the Greyhound. This is the green one. But that was a famous Ives set that they had. And so things were going pretty good in 1926. Did many of you were able to look at the video that's on the website about the Ives bankruptcy? So what happens in 1927, the Ives need some money to expand their train business. They produced a great variety of trains. They've kind of mortgaged a lot of the equipment in the factory. And Harry Ives, at that point, he was probably about 60 years old, 62 years old. And the board of directors wants Harry to kind of move aside, and he becomes chairman of the board of the company. And they bring a guy named Charles Johnson in to run the company. And along with Charles Johnson, they get an infusion of money that comes into the company. Someone makes a big commitment, and they get money to expand. And things are very good in 1927. They actually, they've developed their first cast iron engine right here, which is the 1132. And this doesn't come out to 1928. And that's pretty exciting. What happens in 1927 is that they haven't produced a steam engine. They dropped their cast iron, and they got this engine back out. This is John's. This is Johnny's now. This is 1120, and it's a cast iron engine, and it's only produced 1 year, 1927. And so they're trying to, the company's trying to get another steam engine because they haven't produced a steam engine for many years. And this one is not quite ready to come to the market, so they bring this one out, and this becomes a very to collectors today, this is a very collectible engine, the 1120. But by 28, they have this one. So in 27, the company has been infused with money. Things are going good. They have their record sales. They sell more trains in 1927 than they've ever sold, but they don't make a profit. You know, so it's like the best of times, and you know they sell a lot of trains, and they've had this infusion of money, and they start to make in 1927 they make the first. They come up with this New Haven style local. This came out in 1928, but 1927 they have a green one like this, and it's called the Green Mountain set, and it has two cars to it, two passenger cars, and it's very well received. In fact, it's so well received that the following year they decide they're going to produce the White Owl. And you now remember John's article in the observation, the White Owl knows? but when John did that article, that's when I read that article. I had to go out and find the White Owl set. So that's when I bought this set after John had done that. John had found his White Owl at York. And so...
Peter, how much were they back then? I mean, how much was a White Owl set or some of these sets?
These were smaller sets. I mean, this set was a big set. I don't know. I don't know, Mike. I don't know. I don't think they weren't the real. Well, I mean, that's what the line had come to, you know, at that time. I think the 1132 was a big, expensive engine. And in 1929, they take the design one step further, and they do this set, and it's called the Yankee Clipper set. Same engine, different paint scheme, and they just kept reproducing that. So they made the three New Haven style sets, the Green Mountain, the White Owl, and the Yankee Clipper. But what happens in 1927 is really, they have a great year. 1928 dawns. They go to the Toy Fair in February in New York. They show all their new designs. Things are looking good. They get orders. They get a lot of orders, and they go back, and they have to figure out how they're going to produce the engines. The problem was that the toy business, you got paid in November, right before you sent the trains to the retail, and then the retail would pay, they got half the money at that point, and the other half didn't come to after Christmas. But all the trains had to be produced before, and they had a cash flow problem. And, you know, when you look at the amount that they owed, it wasn't that much in today's dollars. It was a lot of money back then. But the most pressing bill was the catalog. They had made these catalogs, but they hadn't paid the catalog bill for probably 3 years. It was like $27,000. Doesn't sound like a lot of money, but back in 1928 it was. And they decided that the only way they had to file Chapter bankruptcy. And the judge, they wanted to do a sale that was a private sale. And the judge of the court said, no, we're going to do a public sale. So they didn't have their choice. And so by July, August of 1928, the company goes up for sale. And everything has been mortgaged. The factory had been mortgaged. They had rebuilt a new factory on Holland Avenue in Bridgeport. And it was a monstrous facility. But it was all mortgaged. All the equipment was mortgaged. And when John DeSantis gave this program, he talked about, they found the bankruptcy papers, and it's a really good program. You should look at it, but listen to it on the website. But there was no choice, and who comes to buy the company but a representative from Lionel? And the representative from Lionel buys the company for $75,000. And so at that point, Harry Ives is gone. Lionel's running the company. And for 28 and 29 and 1930, they stay at Bridgeport making trains. They have some stock that's left over. They also have this engine, the 1122 coming out, and these later trains. And so they're still making trains. But the company is no longer run by the Ives family. So it's pretty sad what happened. And it's pretty, they just had bad management from their cash flow was the main problem. And, the Ives people, when we talk about, what happened, they always ran the company as a family. When a train would come back for repair, Harry Ives would say, just send a new one out to, don't bother fixing it. Just, every boy should have a train that runs good. So they were quite generous in how they ran the company. And they probably were generous to the employees because it was like a family. But it just wasn't managed right. And the cash flow caused the problem. And so what happens in 1929, Lionel gets influenced, and Lionel had an engine like this that they had, a 248. We recognize that from a Lionel engine. And they take parts. And now somehow American Flyer, even though the company was bought by Lionel, there must have been some kind of deal between Lionel and American Flyer, because American Flyer is a part owner of the company. And so they both are making decisions together, Lionel and American Flyer being out of Chicago, W.O. Coleman, and so they're making decisions. Ives is short on parts, so American Flyer sends cars to repaint and label as Ives. Lionel does the same. And so over the years, you kind of have a mixture of Lionel, American Flyer, and Ives. And this is a perfect example of a 248 engine that they repainted. So in 1929, pretty much one of the last trains made by the Ives factory, even though it wasn't Ives, it was still in Bridgeport, was the Blue Vagabond set. And what they did was they called this 1125. This engine, we had the first electric engine they had, the largest electric, this engine right here, was numbered 1125. And that came out in the teens. But they came up with this new design on an engine. They called it 1125, and they repainted. This was a number 17 tender that they repainted blue. This is the first decal that Ives had ever used. They had never used a decal on anything. This tender had a decal. And they take the passenger cars to these cars, size-wise. They're 4-wheel cars, and they make a 3-car set, and it's called the Blue Vagabond. And so they had that. This was John's Gilmore set. And back, I don't know, maybe about 6 months ago, a year, 6 to 8 months ago, John sold that set to me. So I have that from John. So then what happened in 1930, American Flyer is gone. So it's solely Lionel at that point. And Lionel says, okay, we're closing down the plant. No use having a plant here. We have everybody down in Irvington, New Jersey. We'll just move everything down to Irvington. And so they moved the Ives plant down to New Jersey. And they closed the Bridgeport. And so the collectors from 1928 through 1930, they call that period of time Ives in bondage. Because it was still Ives, but it wasn't Ives. It was kind of run by Lionel and American Flyer. So when Lionel takes it over, 1931, they close the plant, they move it to Irvington, and the collectors of Ives called the last phase of Ives, till it dies completely, Ives the transition years. And there were three, 1931, 32, and 33 were the transition years. And by early 1933, Ives is no longer. When Lionel moves Ives to Irvington, they have just several different sets that they produce. They produce this set. This is Johnny Jr. This is a Ives Railroad Lines 1651. I guess this would be called maybe a New Haven style loco. And it had kind of a new design on the passenger cars. And Ives kind of becomes the junior set. Lionel makes Ives their production that they keep for the 3 years, the junior sets, the cheaper trains. And there are two styles of New Havens. This is a little later style. This came out in 1933. And while this engine is labeled Ives Railroad Lines, this one says Lionel Ives Lines. So Lionel is thinking, we're going to get rid of the Ives name. This is the transition engine that will make that change. And the next year, it would be called the Lionel Lines. And it had the two cars. And I'm sure this is Curtis Hofstadter's. Charlie's. So after this engine, they did make, Lionel did make a steam engine. Ives made a steam engine by Lionel. And what Lionel did was they took their 257 and 258 trains, which were the real basic steam engines that they had. They put Ives plates on them, and for those transition years, they called them Ives. But it was nothing new in the design-wise. So Curtis brought these. I mean, the O-gauge Ives trolley are really collectible. And they're very expensive. But Curtis, do you know the year that this?
Why he brought me along, by the way, to protect these two cars.
The year, Curtis. I'm not sure the year on those.
They started making these around 1910. This is the Ives 809. The Ives 810 has the pole and runs off the Canton area. The Ives 809, which is what this is, has a third rail roller. These are a little easier to find than the 810. But why I brought this was really just to share with you, this is a trailer. And as a trolley collector, when you can get a motor and have a trailer, you really have something. I have a Guntherman motor and a Guntherman trailer. I've got an Ives 810 motor and a trailer, and now I have an 809 with a trailer. And you can see all it is obviously the frame has a place for the motor, the electric motor, and this doesn't. This is simply just a roller. But it's a trailer. I got it at auction, and I'd never seen a trailer for the 809. I've seen it for the 810. So when I saw it come up at auction, I bid like crazy and got it.
And how is the 809 trailer different?
But it's not, it's just that it has 809.
Oh, it has 809.
But I had never seen one.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see these periodically. I mean, I had probably 3 or 4 809s, but I only had one 810. And now I have an 809 trailer.
That's great.
809. And I don't want to, just if I could tag on to what Peter said, Ives put a motor, and I don't want to, you just tricked me, I got my memory going. Ives put a motor in one of these,
Oh, yeah.
different frame, a wind-up mechanical motor.
That's the trolley.
And they did it in the Buffalo, which is one of these is Buffalo. I have the Buffalo, I have this one. They're really hard to find, really hard to find. But the thing that makes it so interesting is they simply changed the frame, cut it out, and put a mechanical motor in, wind up, and they made a trolley.
Well, that's good.
So they were utilizing their materials and their dyes and everything. When they came up with the 809 and the 810, those trolleys, that was a complete departure.
That was a big car too, because you remember in 1910, the 1100 was the first electric steam engine, and the 3200 was the electric S-Class electric. And if that's the same vintage, you know, they came up with a really big, that's what was really unique about those, because they're, you know, I could see where the Buffalo or the Brooklyn, you know, was smaller. We've seen these, but I didn't realize the 809 was so early, because that was a big car.
They designed it after what type of trolley ran in the area around Bridgeport.
Yeah.
So anyway,
But that's a great addition, because I don't have the 809 or 810. So
Kurtz, don't worry, it's all right, it's safe.
Okay. So I guess I'd just like to say that if you would like to collect Ives, Louis Hertz did a book called Monsieur Ives of Bridgeport. This is probably the best written train book that I've read, and it tells the whole history of Ives from the beginning of the toy making to the end of the trains when they went bankrupt. But it's a great book. You can find it online. It was done back in, I think, 1950 or the late 40s by Louis Hertz. And so much of the history of Ives is remembered in this book, because other than the train books that have the cars, the Doc Wabi book that Don Lewis was involved with, that just shows engines in the different cars. There's no really history book about Ives. So this is a book that if you want to collect Ives, this is the one to get. Monsieur Ives of Bridgeport. It tells about the town at the beginning, the two families, and so I've taken you on a journey here. Any questions? That's about, yes.
I have one comment I'd like to make. It's been about 25, 30 years ago. I came to a train show, VTC, and there was one locomotive in a box that was in park. And I got it for like $75 or $100. It was a 1929 standard gauge Ace.
Okay.
And that tagged the Ace on it.
Well, Ace was American Flyer.
Yeah, I know. So that's what it was. I thought, well, for that amount of money, I'll take it. And I had two guys said, if you don't buy, Bill, we will.
Mm-hmm.
This was 901, the time of meet. So I buy this thing, and I find out, what I really had. And I needed some wheels for it.
Yeah.
My whole thing.
Is that the one Bill Crow has?
Yeah.
Yeah. Bill Clay bought that engine from Bill.
Master cars for what, 4 of them,
Yep.
and,
It's beautiful.
I sold them all to Bill Crow.
Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful restoration.
Together, you know.
But Ives is such a great company. I mean, American Flyer is great also. I mean, Coleman out of Chicago, you know, he starts his company in 1908, and he competes with Ives. Well, Lionel doesn't really get started in 1915 with their O gauge. So, but you know, by the 1920s, you know, you have Dorfan, Lionel, American Flyer, and Ives. It becomes very competitive. But you can get your hands around Ives, and this shows a good cross section. I mean, there's all different varieties. So I mean, I haven't shown you any of the different varieties, but kind of showed the sequence and some of the cars, and so yes.
Being a neophyte, and this is maybe a silly question, but when they designed the different engines and cars of the different years, were they trying to reflect an engine of that era? Or were they trying to make it look like a Pennsylvania? You know?
Well, you know, Ives was based out of New York and Connecticut. So on the East Coast, you had the center cab S-Class. The new, St. Paul style was out of the Midwest. And if you look at American Flyer engines, a lot of the American Flyer engines have the rounded hood.
Okay.
This is the only rounded hood one that I'm aware of in O gauge that Ives had. They did everything in S-Class, you know, the square cab, and then they introduced the New Haven style because they were from that area. And but you know, it's pretty. Yeah, they designed the trains to represent, you know, the real trains at that time. Bells? Yes, Jody.
When you say the New Haven style, is that
Yeah.
the way the commuter trains kind of?
Well, no, I think they called this square cab New Haven style. That was a New Haven style engine. Where you had a square cab like this. This was a box cab. Mm-hmm. New Haven kind of was rounded more.
I just wondered why they called it, if it was a shorter commuter line.
Don't know. I mean, it was probably from Connecticut, New Haven.
Well, I'm from New Haven, that's why I asked.
I have no idea.
But I'm just
You know,
curious.
I don't know. Don't you love that color red? This is called Cardinal Red in Ives, and this is a Cardinal Red. I mean, their Cardinal Red were beautiful, that red color engines. And but to give you another idea, you know, here these cars have a green frame, and this same car, you know, a lot of them had black frames, like this car. The same style frame, but just black and green. Green are the hard ones to find. And
But you would find some cars that made in different colors,
oh yeah, absolutely,
Lionel as well.
yeah. But I think that gives you a good history of Ives. So thank you. Okay, John.
White Owl story?
A white
You
out?
want a White Owl story?
Absolutely, yeah.
I guess it was about 8-9 years ago. My dad and mother were at York. First day they were there, and they go into Blue Hall. At the end, first aisle they go up, and my dad had been looking for a white owl for years. In fact, one time right at the end of the meet, I happened to be in yellow under the grandstand and said, I saw a white owl. And he said, where? You know, I made a point of, you know, having me go find it, and it was gone by the time it was there. It was probably too expensive. In the box, very nice. So at any rate, first aisle we go up. I was with my dad, you know, just sort of helping them along. And there's a white owl. Somebody's got one there marked $700 or something like that in the box. Very nice white owl. And you know, my dad isn't going to make that decision in a hurry. He wants to think about it. So we went up to the end of the aisle, over and down the next aisle on the other side. And as we came past that whiteout, there was my mother buying it. And my father was so miffed that she had beat him to that thing, and he acknowledged later that she probably got a better price than he would have. And now my nephew has that white owl. He was with my father and mother that day, so it makes a good story. And so, you know, my dad's pursuit of a white owl ended with his wife actually getting a white owl, but he inherited it. So
Very nice, John. Good
anyway.
It's a great story. One thing about John is that, like Bill has involved Jody with the hobby and his interests, John always involved Ruth with his collecting. And I think it probably made things easier when he bought stuff, but you know, I think we should all take a lesson from that and try to involve our spouses or significant others in the hobby, because it gave him a lot of enjoyment, and Ruth actually really enjoyed it over the years.
She always came up with something very...
Said, don't you know me? I'm your native son. I'm the train they call the city of New Orleans. I'll be gone 500 miles when the day is done. Dealing card games with the old man in the club car. Penny a point ain't no